Let's go.
Okay, so let's start with our series of improvised lectures. We will try to see as much as possible the different strategies for modeling in 2D and 3D. So we will see for each software, we will do a separate video. In each software is not just a different software brand, company, and so on. It has also a different way of dealing with the geometry. So different way for describing geometry, and that's what's important. So it's not important that you learn how to use only Blender, but how to work with the way Blender deals with the geometry and then use similar software as well. We will mostly use open source or freeware software at the moment. So that's something that you can try to do in as many platforms as possible. So we'll start with 2D drawing, and we'll just see a bit of theory about it. The important thing to understand when you design in 2D, you have two different ways for doing that. You either describe the object with a mathematical formula and with data, and then that's called vector drawing, or you basically draw a map, a matrix of all the pixels in the image, and that's a bitmap or raster. So the main difference is that, of course, the vector, since it's a mathematical formula, can scale the image without losing quality. The bitmap will lose quality. Typically, vector files need less space on disk, but it depends on the complexity of the image. If it's very complex, then important that you do then a rasterizing of the vector image to a bitmap. In your case, probably it's not going to be a problem. You can transform a vector to a bitmap very easily. You can transform a bitmap into a vector less easily. It depends on the bitmap. You can insert a bitmap inside a vector quite easily, but if you want to insert a vector inside the bitmap, you have to rasterize it into a bitmap. So we'll start with the bitmap first, which is basic, and we'll see Gimp and maybe Krita. Gimp is an open source software that's multi-platform and is the most similar software to open source that's for free. It's quite good. It has years of development. It's only disadvantage that it couldn't handle 16-bit images. That means that for very important photographies, you can handle the full color scale. So in that case, it's important to use Krita, for example, that can handle 16-bit images. And the developers of Gimp are working on adding the 16-bit depth support, but I'm not sure if it's already available yet. So this is the main window. Let me check just one thing. If you get more windows, because it's the traditional Gimp way, on Windows you have single window mode that will basically set up, will toggle between the one window mode, Photoshop-like, or different windows. So I prefer the single window mode, so that's it. So the structure is like Photoshop. You have the tools here, the color, foreground and background color here that you can change with a double click. And you have then brushes, patterns, and gradients. Here you have the histogram of the distribution of colors in the image. And you have layers, channels, mixer, and you have the undo here. So we'll load one image from one student, just to make an example. So I already see that this is a quite big image. Here below you have the zoom. So for example, this is 100%. And we see here the size. It's quite a big image for a website. So first thing that we want to do is scale it down. So we go to image, scale image. 72 DPI as a resolution is perfect because it's for the screen, so it's for the web as well. So we leave it as it is. But we want to put here a different width. So if you leave it here, then you have a constraint on the ratio. So we want to have a constraint on the ratio, and we put, for example, 800, which is already a good size, and that's the image. The more thing that you want to do, you can change the mode, so you can change to grayscale. If you change to grayscale, you lose completely the color, and the image occupy less space, but then you cannot go back to the color. You lose that information. So the thing that you want to do probably is stays in RGB and then do something else. In indexed is for GIF, if I remember well. So you can change, for example, the different index of colors. So again, this is just for a GIF or similar format. You can save that with this, but not in this case we need it. Here you see the histogram, so it's a quite dark image. So you see we have a peak here in complete darkness. We have a lot of colors, a lot of pixels in the dark part, and we have few pixels in the very light part. Okay. So other thing that we want to do in colors, you can balance the color. So for example, we can balance shadows or midtones, and we can make more cyan, okay, or we can make more green. We can change the hue of the image, so we can change the hue like this, or you can change the saturation. So if you want to lose a bit of color but not too much, here with this you toggle the preview. You can change brightness and contrast, but this is not really dynamic. So usually you will use levels or curves. Levels, you see the same histogram, and then you can change where are the darkness and where is the middle, and then the lightness. Okay, in there you have a much more dynamic balancing. Otherwise, you can use the curves. So here with this, you change the curve. You can save the curve, so you can reuse it on more images. You can invert it, okay, and much more. Here on filters, you have a lot of different filters. So for example, blur, Gaussian blur. You can set up a radius of the blur. So for example, here and here, and you see the difference. So here you see a preview, and if you click on OK, it will be on that part. So first thing that you want to do is probably select a part, a section. So you select with this, and this you see here is the selection, so you can move it as well. If you go on the select unknown, you lose it, you deselect it, or you can go on select and invert and select everything else. So for example, I select this, and if I paint with this in red, I will paint only inside the selection. Okay. So if I do select none now I can paint on all the image. But I don't want to do this because I'm editing this image. So in Undo, I can go before. I create a new layer with this. You can change the size of the layer, but usually give it the full size of the image. You can change if you want to fill with the foreground color, background color, white, transparency. Okay, so these are foreground and background. Just leaves transparent. If I paint it now on top of this, here I see the layer. You see in the icon the preview of it. If I click on the eye, I can put it hidden. I can hide it and show it. So you never lose the information on this layer. Exactly you will do in Photoshop. You can change the opacity here. So for example, I can put 50. Sorry, not of this one. Of this one above. Okay, so it's 50. You can change the type of overlay of blending. So for example, this is normal, this is multiply. You can have difference, saturation, color, so as you would do in Photoshop as well. Then you can add text with this, you can do gradients, you can do stamp as you will do in Photoshop. So it's really like Photoshop, but just open source. Then you can save it. You can save it as the Gimp format, which is XCF. It is basically a file format you can still re-edit because it saves all the layers and so on. You can save it also as PSD if you want. So if you want to open it in Photoshop, you can save it as PSD. You can open PSD. Maybe you won't be able to get all the details, but you can do it. But for the documentation on the web, the best thing is to do File, Save for Web, Save for Web is by default on Mac. You will probably have to install it separately on Linux. Here you can find a different file format. You can change the quality. Here you see the file size. So for example, this image can go from almost 300 kilobytes to 21 kilobytes. And you see, for example, if you do PNG, you see that that's the size. So the important thing is that you try to play with these settings and you understand which file occupy less. So this is a JPEG that occupy only 60 kilobytes, but it's really great. So most of the time the best thing is that you try to play with this and then you save it. So that's the main thing for Gimp. Then you can find much more information online.